when Jasper Dalhaus rolled the ball across for Alessia de Cruz. The first goal of the year for the striker, who netted in each of the final 3 of 2024. Fortuna themselves had struggled for goals, losing 4 of their 5 games since Christmas and picking up just a point, while this was the first AKC had conceded at home in the league this year. They'd won 3 in a row to move off the bottom before being brought back down to earth by a defeated FC Twente last time out. But they were second best for a time and could easily have conceded a second goal shortly after. This time it started with a cross from de Cruz before Dalhaus again played an important role linking up with Christopher Peterson. Only the presence of Juan Familia Castillo on the line prevented it. One left back denying the other what would have been just a second Eredivisie goal. Fortuna had won the last 3 meetings, and de Cruz also opened the scoring in the previous encounter as they built a 3-0 first-half lead before very nearly being pegged back in the second. It was a busy opening quarter of the game. AKC threatening next to Rishana Margaret, who'd managed only 1 league goal in 4.5 months, and this time hit the side netting. They also had the only other significant chance in the first period as the game settled down. Faisal Al-Maziani crossing for Mikhail Kramer, only for the ball to deflect away from the big striker, thanks to good work from goalkeeper Matthijs Brandenhorst, who was returning after injury. Not that Fortuna's coach, Danny Baus, was happy. A win for AKC would bring them to within 3 points of third-bottom Sparta, who occupied the relegation playoff position, and 4 points from absolute safety. The visitors had their eyes on a return to the top 8 and a place at the end-of-season European playoffs. But a 1-goal lead didn't seem like it would be enough as AKC continued to push. Kramer thought he'd forced a penalty with this diving header. The appeals of handball were against Rodrigo Huth, but referee Martin von den Kerkhoff wasn't convinced. And the incident was not decisive. Although they'd won both home games in 2025 without conceding, away-from-home goals and wins had been hard for AKC to come by. As the final 10 minutes approached, they were no closer, Liam van Helderen heading that one over. Fortuna had lost 1 former Ajax player to a knee injury last week in Daily Singraven, but here they were able to welcome back another, striker Kai Seerhaus, after 10 months on the sidelines. He joined the action with 5 minutes to go, replacing de Cruz for a first appearance since early May of last year. It's the second time that he's had to come back from a serious knee injury, but he said he felt mentally ready. His side, though, remained under the cosh as AKC looked to force a dramatic equaliser. Their Eredivisie status depends on them getting something from games like this, with tougher tests against PSV and RZ on the horizon. But they again came up against resolute defending, and when they did see a chance fall their way, Sylvester van der Water couldn't take it. Set up by Kramer and fellow substitute Richard van der Ven. Moments later, though, as the 90th minute came to an end, van der Water did step up, finishing off a neat combination to become the hero. The ball accidentally coming to him of defender Seb van Ottela. One which Brandenhorst clearly felt that he should have kept out. It ended up being the perfect assist from the unfortunate central defender, and a first league goal in 4 months for the winger. Given Fortuna's lack of opportunity at the other end, everything now seemed to be pointing to a draw. However, a mistake from one of the architects of that goal, Al-Maziani, led to a breakaway. And a heartbreak too, as Ezequiel Balada intervened. Seerhaus then grabbed an assist on his return. Ryan Fosso, the unlikely match winner. It was the Swiss midfielder's first goal for the club, but Seerhaus got just as much attention in the celebrations. It was an astute little pass from him across the box. And it sparked wild scenes as if they just stayed up or won a cup final, while EKC, in contrast, were flat out. A bit like Sierhuis, gaining nothing from a game that they had dominated for long spells. The first win of the year was certainly important, and Fortuna ended the weekend ninth, on the cusp of the playoffs again, ahead of a meeting with Heracles. Fourth place Utrecht haven't quite taken off yet in 2025. After winning their first two in League and Cup, they hadn't tasted success since. They were facing an Breda side whose own winless run had stretched to 4 matches. Sidney van Hooijdonk, as yet without a goal on his return to the visitors. Ron Janss's men had gone 6 without success, 4 of them draws, but both teams hadn't played for 2 weeks. The hosts also had a returning striker, looking for a first league goal, although Sebastian Haller had found the net twice in the cup. Here, he helped the ball onto Nick Viergever, who gave keeper Daniel Bielica a clattering. The goal didn't stand, and the keeper needed treatment in order to continue. Most surprising of Utrecht's recent setbacks was a 1-0 loss here to bottom side Almere City, and they hadn't actually won at home since the 8th of November, which had allowed Feyenoord, AZ and FC Twente below them to close the gap. Feyenoord overtaking them on the last match day to move into third. It hadn't all been doom and gloom though, as they picked up decent draws with PSV and AZ, but Haller has been putting pressure on himself to get the goals. This one might have flown in but for the head of defender Maxime Boussy. Again here, Jans fielded both Haller and David Min together up front, as he had done against PSV, having previously favoured a 4-2-3-1 formation. Early indications were mixed, with Min thinking he forced a handball here from Leo Greimel, only to have his hopes dashed. It did strike the defender's arm, but referee Erwin Blank decided that arm was in a natural position, despite it being away from his body. Breda had alternated between draws and defeats over their last 4, with the only success since early December coming surprisingly against FC Twente in mid-January. They failed to muster much of an attacking threat, in the first half in particular, so it was left to Utrecht to make the running. Paxton Aronson with their last chance before the break, as a patchy half came to a close. Min made his presence felt early in the second, robbing Jan Vondenberg to set up Utrecht's best breakaway opportunity, only to then squander it by not passing quickly enough. With Haller waiting, he allowed Greimel to get too close. Getting to half-time level seemed to have given the visitors more belief though, and they did begin to threaten, with Leo Sauer getting his first real chance to strike at goal. The Feyenoord loanee brought a rare save from Vasilis Barkas, who did start to get a little busier in this period. And they came closer still from the resulting throw, Van Hooijdonk's effort from close range bringing the best out of the Greek keeper. He had only 1 clean sheet in almost 4 months. The opening 15 minutes of the second half was a busy period, and the Haller-Viergever combination nearly came off again from this free kick. Haller denied by good goalkeeping, his teammate by the presence of too many defenders. But the Ivorian striker was involved as they finally edged ahead just before the hour, seizing on a mistake and countering productively. Zidane Iqbal with the run, Oscar Fraulo in the right place to convert the rebound. A rare goal this for the midfielder, only his second for the club, a month after his first one came along. Although Haller was frustrated afterwards, he was happy for the team, and Jans was happy with him. On another day, he might well have scored 2 or even 3. However, he came away empty-handed after a succession of near misses. The next was set up from the right-hand side by Siba Horemans. Haber too, who continued to bust a gut to make sure he got on the end of set pieces, turning this back towards goal and towards Horemans. So the overall score could actually have been much more comfortable. And it should have been really, given the ones that got away. But it was at least less stressful for Utrecht than the meeting in Breda in week 3, when they'd needed 2 stoppage time goals to turn a prospective 1-0 loss into a 2-1 win. The final chance also involved Aller, who unselfishly set up Victor Jensen, only for Adam Cade to nip in for NAC Breda. A narrow win, but enough to return to 3rd place for now, with Feyenoord still to play. The fans' near 4-month wait for a home win finally ended. Next, it's a visit to Willem II. NAC Breda hosts Sparta Rotterdam. Revenge was the target for PSV as they travelled to Go Ahead Eagles, the side that had knocked them out in the Cup semi-finals at home just 3 days previously. With Ismail Saibari chosen in midfield ahead of Joey Thurman, they tried to take the game to their opponents early. Coach Peter Bosz refused to use the word crisis to describe their situation, but they'd won just one of their 6 league games this year and seen Ajax leap ahead to establish a 5-point lead. Their average of just a point a game this year is what you'd expect a side at the bottom of the table to be achieving, not one with title ambitions. They'd still beaten Feyenoord in the Cup and Juventus in the Champions League, but they were undone again by the Eagles forwards midway through the first half. Victor Edvardsson crossing for Oliver Antman. The 27th goal PSV had conceded so far this season, that's 6 more than in the whole of the last campaign. The man with the most open play assists in the Eredivisie, now grabbing a 3rd goal of an impressive campaign. However, 7 minutes later, it was all square again. Not from the corner, but from an equally good delivery on the other side. Olivier Boscali picking out Luc de Jong. A 15th goal for the captain this season, 11 of those in the league. He remains a real threat and he knew exactly what to do here, moving himself to the far post where his height served him well. And soon after, they turned the game around, putting together the kind of move which regularly cut sides apart in the first half of the season. Their attack hasn't been hampered too much by recent form, but defensively things have begun to creak and malfunction. Noah Lang was the scorer, only thanks to this significant deflection off Asker Adelgaard, one which left keeper Jari de Busse stranded. The second goal of the year for the winger and a provocative celebration in front of the home fans. It gave the visitors back the momentum. And for the remainder of the half, the Eagles sensed that they would be in for a tough evening. It was the reaction Bosz said he wanted to see, an aggressive and an intense attacking display. He said he couldn't have asked for more, although he did expect better defending, which seemed to be an issue here. De Jong clumsily flattening Milan Smit to concede a penalty. Although referee Paul van Boekel pointed to the spot, the striker suggested the foul was actually outside the box. And after a VAR consultation, the official agreed, changing his decision to a free kick. One which in the end proved wayward from defender Dean James. An opportunity to equalise wasted. However, Bosz felt they remained in control until the final 15 minutes, and given the chances they'd had, the game could have safely been in the bag by then. Instead, it seemed the Eagles had levelled, catching PSV out on the break again. Smit leading the charge, support coming from Antman. And he looked to have teed up debutant Oscar Pettersson. Swede, signed from Gothenburg, wheeled away, and the on-field decision was to give the goal. Replays showed just how tight a decision the VAR was going to have. After a wait, Von Buchel signalled offside, but it was a harsh one. The boss was happy enough. Right on the edge, and the kind of decision that new prospective rules from the International FA Board are looking to avoid. So, instead, the wait for a second goal was around 5 minutes longer. And this time it was a familiar face that scored against PSV. Victor Edvardsson had got the winner in the Cup in Eindhoven. And here, he anticipated the space behind PSV's increasingly leaky back line. He may have lost his namesake Oliver to Ajax, but even without their most productive player from the first half of the campaign, the supply line continues. And their impressive season gets better and better. A 7th goal of the season for him, matching last year's tally already. And once again, Boss had reason to be angry at the position of his defenders. His goalkeeper, Walter Benitez, has now conceded more times than he's made saves in 2025. PSV had won each of their last 15 against the Eagles, one of the longest streaks of that kind against another club in top-flight history. But the spectre of defeat loomed large, and they carried on getting caught. Tyrell Malacia caught out by Antman, and this time Benitez did make the save. Plenty for their next opponent's Arsenal to analyse and enjoy in this. A minute later, Malacia hadn't learned his lesson and lost track of Antman again in the box. The Finn allowed plenty of time to pick up the ball and smack it into the corner. First ever league double for him, and an 8th home league win of the season for his side. They're most in the top flight since 1986. For PSV, a 4th Eredivisie game without a win, matching their longest streak in the last decade. After hosting Arsenal, they'll also welcome Heerenveen. But they once again handed the initiative back to Ajax, who've been faultless in the Eredivisie this year, and now had the chance to open an 8-point lead. A dream week for go-ahead Eagles, who consolidated their position in 7th. They're now only 6 points off the top 4. After back-to-back wins over NSA and Willem II last month, Groningen began this in 10th, needing just 6 more points to reach the tally of 34, which normally keeps the side up. The early stages were promising, Steyr Racing picking up Dave Kvartman, who couldn't follow up his first for the club last time out. The coach, Dick Lukin, was determined his side would fight, having felt they should have got something from December's meeting with Twente. His opposite number, Joseph Oosting, said his side weren't good on the ball and weren't good defensively when they didn't have it. They did keep this out, Lars Unnestal reacting well to Wouter Prince's header. But it was a game of few chances, one which Twente had been expected to win based on their position in 5th and the fact they could move 3rd. They'd only lost 1 of their previous 8, winning 5 of them. However, it was from another corner that Groningen took the lead. Tom van Bergen pouncing here for his 2nd goal in as many home games. Having chosen to celebrate with the corner flag, he then did the dutiful thing and fixed it afterwards. Once complete though, there followed a lengthy period of checks from the VAR to determine whether or not he'd actually been offside. It was a tight one in the end, and referee Dennis Higler had to wait before he could confirm the goal. It appeared the striker's right foot was just in line. However, in first half stoppage time, they then gave the lead away via a penalty for holding in the box, something Lukin couldn't believe had been given against his man Tijmen Bloksha. He was deemed to be impeding Gustav Lagerbielke. He bemoaned the inconsistency, saying this kind of thing goes on all the time but is rarely punished. It gave Sem Stein the opportunity to extend his lead in the battle for the Golden Boot. And the league's top scorer shut out the boos to make it 19 goals for the season. 7 clear of his nearest rival, Troy Parrott. It also made him the highest scoring Twente player in a season since Luc de Jong in 2012, who went on to get 25 in his breakthrough campaign. Although they enjoyed fortune there, Austin maintained that luck wasn't on their side when it came to putting other chances away. Nothing lucky about the way Prince chased this down though, herring after Dan Rots and timing his challenge perfect. And perhaps Conaghan will feel that Twente did get lucky when they claimed for a penalty just past the hour. Cross hitting Bas Carapace on the arm, although it was tucked by his side. Skipper Marco Rente was the one involved, and the one appealing the loudest. But to no avail. Another refereeing decision that Lukian didn't agree with. One of Conaghan's most famous sons, meanwhile, Ian Robben, was in attendance. Austin made 4 changes in quick succession and then also brought on Nassi Univar with 10 minutes to go. The former Ajax youngster was a direct threat here, leading to a yellow card for Rente as he tried to stop him. It was also then the captain that stopped Stein's free kick, taking one full in the face on the end of the wall to keep his side level. Concern was understandable, but he did remain conscious. And after a brief pause, he seemed ready to continue, despite the Conaghan physio having initially suggested otherwise. However, the German did come back on and completed the game. He was the one closest by when Univar looked to win it late on. The 21-year-old didn't quite progress as Ajax had hoped, and after a loan with Twente last season and time at Espanyol in the first half of this campaign, he moved to the Tuckers on a free in January. As yet, he hasn't scored. All 3 points would have taken them level with Utrecht, and they have a much better goal difference. But Prince proved the difference, riding to the rescue again at the far post as Saifala Lataif looked to set up Stein. More well-timed defending, otherwise he would have had a tap. So Twente remained in 5th place, a point behind Feyenoord. Almere City come next. Groningen stayed 10th and they don't play next week at all. Their game with Feyenoord's been postponed to allow the Rotterdam side more time to focus on their 2-legged Champions League tie with Inter Milan. Robin van Persie's debut in the Feyenoord dugout was the focus of their game against NEC. He said beforehand he'd concentrated more on the defensive than offensive side of things over his first few days. Having joined with just 11 games to go, he has little time to develop a style of play. And with 12 injuries to contend with, many in midfield, he also had a conundrum to solve, which he did by putting left-back Haismal alongside a debutant, January signing Osama Tagalain from Le Havre. Feyenoord had lost only one of their last 19 meetings with NEC, who won their opening 2 of the year but had drawn 2 and lost 2 since then, sitting 13th. Winger Anis Hadj-Moussa had been one of the home side's more exciting players under Brian Prisk, and he was the first to take aim here. NEC's first threat was from a set piece. Defender Bram Nautink rising highest to test out Timon Vellenreuter and go close to a second goal. The injury problems meant a chance for Luka Ivanušek. The Croatian international had started only 4 league games for Feyenoord before this, and he hadn't been used much in the Cup or Champions League either. He looked a little rusty at times. The only other chances came late on in the half, 1 apiece. NAC's was as a result of some brave play at the back and a good advantage from referee Rob Diepering. That allowed Sonja Hansen to progress a long way and then set up Vito van Krooij. Good positioning from Berenreuter, again denied in the opening. And what would have been the first goal against Feyenoord since January 2019, a season where he scored against each of the big 3 in the Eredivisie for Pek Zwolle. Thomas Baylen had helped out by clearing that one away, and it was his centre-half partner, David Hansko, that had the home side's chance here, one which was headed off the line by a former Feyenoord defender, Calvin Verdonk. Van Persie kept things as they were for the first portion of the second half, but they struggled to create clear opportunities, despite averaging around 70% possession. The fit against Filinski-Hartmann carried an attacking threat, but Ivanušek was off target. And with 20 minutes to go, disaster struck as NAC took the lead. It stemmed from a break down the left, which Feyenoord didn't deal with. Sub Lars Olden Larsen had only come on 3 minutes before and had plenty of zip to sprint into the box and connect with the cross. Feyenoord's immediate reaction was to claim handball earlier in the move, while the Norwegian celebrated just his second Eredivisie goal, exactly a year on from his first. Nothing wrong with the cross or the header. The referee was called over to check this moment where Koki Ogawa brought the ball down. And having done so, it was clear that he'd used his arm. Back to square one. 6 minutes later, the fans were even more joyous as Feyenoord had the ball in the net through 18-year-old sub Stefano Carrillo, but it was soon their turn to see that become frustrating very quickly, due to an offside. Not against the scorer, whose 2 brief appearances have come in the last 2 league games, but against Igor Pasha, after Hansko prodded the ball to him. Without a touch from the defender who'd been pushed up front, Pasha could have been onside. Hansko did eventually prove effective. He's tall and strong and strikes the ball well, and he had a decent time of it, getting on the end of this cross with an impressive volley, but without the necessary direction. He ended up having more efforts than anyone else. His last didn't have the power to be effective though, a simple header at the far post. Van Persie has limited time to change anything with midweek games coming up, although they have postponed this week's planned Eredivisie fixture. Brian Prisk's game plan defeated AC Milan, even though he wasn't in charge to carry it out. Now their city rivals, who sit top of Serie A and are having a much better season, must somehow be overcome. NAC's way of approaching the game will have given the Italians food for thought. The Nijmegen club don't have the finishing prowess of Feyenoord's next opponents though, and Ogawa has scored only once this year. The game ended on a sour note for Feyenoord and for Hansko, who picked up his 5th yellow card of the season in stoppage time for this challenge on Bashar Ünal. So, on top of all the injuries, he'll now be suspended for their next league outing away at FC Twente in 2 weeks' time. A frustrating one, as he looked to have got something on the ball. For the Netherlands' all-time top scorer, no goals on his return to the club where he first made his name as a striker. Feyenoord's problems are now perhaps a little clearer to him. The result did at least extend the home side's unbeaten run to 6 games, 3 draws and 3 wins. For the first time since the 2010-2011 season, NAC avoided defeat in both matches with Feyenoord. They'll face in-form go-ahead Eagles next. Van Persie's old side Heerenveen had a tricky-looking encounter with AZ, who'd needed extra time and penalties to beat Heracles in the Cup just 3 days before. The previous meeting in Alkmaar, early in Van Persie's reign, ended 9-1 in AZ's favour, but Heerenveen have been much tougher opponents at home, even though they were yet to win here in 2025. They couldn't have asked for a better start under the interim charge of former assistant Henk Brugge. Some intricate work got them out of a tight spot at the back. And Ilya Sabawi then set up Milos Lukovic inside 5 minutes. That made it goals in consecutive home games for the teenage striker, who joined on loan from Strasbourg in January. It looked very much like Sabawi was actually trying to shoot, but it worked out well in the end and Lukovic was well onside. Heerenveen's CEO, Ferry de Haan, certainly enjoyed it, having admitted he was surprised Van Persie chose to leave. AZ had lost only 2 of the last 17 games with the Frisian side and remained unbeaten away from home during that time. However, their expected response didn't materialise in the first half and they could easily have gone in at the break further behind. Things weren't tidy in AZ's midfield. Christian Belic sloppy in possession and not spotting Lukovic, who was lurking. In the end, he was helped out by his keeper, Rome Jaden Owusu Adure. Heerenveen's appetite for the game was clear. In the 57th minute, the fans also paid tribute to Marcel van der Velde, the nephew of the club's former chairman, Reimer van der Velde, who recently passed away, aged 57. And at the same time, just seconds after the applause began, Sabawi paid his own tribute with Heerenveen's second. Seizing on a mistake by Bruno Martins Indy. After playing this misplaced pass, the defender almost got back to stop him, but the Moroccan was just too good. A second goal of his spell on loan from finals. He's a player the Rotterdam side could probably do with at the moment. The emotions of the afternoon were certainly taking a hold on Brugge. AZ continued to look a little lost, but they did get a chance thanks to a misplaced pass from their opponents this time, one which Troy Parrott couldn't take, thanks to Andries Noppert. A fine save from the big keeper, who was back in after injury to Mickey van der Hart. The first real work he'd had to do. But he had no chance with AZ's goal after a comical mistake from Marcus Linde. The midfielder seemed caught in 2 minds about what to do and took a theatrical tumble, leaving Zico Burmeister with a chance to produce a tidy finish. The man who got the only goal in last week's win over Fortuna Sittard, doing it for his side again and with time to get back level. Not one that the Swede will want to watch too many times, but he did end the game with a smile on his face. So did Noppert, who produced an even better save here to keep out Parrott's next effort. He seemed to have already guessed where the striker was going to put it and clawed it away perfectly. There was an even more remarkable end to the game as the final 60 seconds of normal time arrived. Heerenveen sub Asa Hurbus went down in the area after what had seemed to be minimal contact with another sub, Kees Smith. Referee Alex Boss saw nothing wrong and play continued. Not only that, but AZ managed to work their way down the other end and score an equaliser. Michael Lardo and Denzo Cassius were the chief architects. Great work from both, with Lardo, the winger, taking over and sweeping in confident fashion. An impressive counter from a side who hadn't played well but was suddenly in sight of a welcome point. No one wanted to celebrate, just get on with things, which was probably just as well, because in the end there was nothing to celebrate. The officials came back to check on that previous incident. And it became clear that Smith had caught the Heerenveen youngster. So the AZ goal was disallowed, and suddenly the Frisians had a chance to make it 3-1. Lukovic took it on, but was denied by a fine stop from Owusu Adure. And the game remained a little more in the balance. In keeping with how the other goals had come about, Heerenveen did snatch one last one from another mistake. Another experienced head, Jody Klasi, who'd come on for the final half hour. This one made Linde feel an awful lot better. His first for the club after a January move from his native Sweden. It sealed a feel-good victory which lifted them up to 8th. Rising higher will be a challenge. The gap to go-ahead Eagles above them is another 8 points, but they're in the mix for the European playoffs. As a result, RZ missed the chance to go third, and now turn their attention to Europe with a two-legged tie against Spurs in the Europa League. An emotional afternoon for Brugge, who's hugely popular and will carry on in interim charge while the club seek a permanent successor to Van Persie. It was bottom against top in Almere as Ajax looked to go 8 points above PSV. The home side were 10 points from safety with a 6-point gap to the relegation playoff place, which looks their best chance of survival. And they fell behind early when Kenneth Taylor rifled a shot through a crowd, which found the corner. His 7th goal of the season, it drew him level with the club's top scorers in the league, Davy Klaassen and the injured Wout Weghorst. It proved their only shot on target in the first half, and it was the high point of a tame first half from the leaders. Those outside looking in wouldn't have missed much by not being inside the compact Yanmar Stadium. The home side had more of the ball and in decent areas, more shots and more corners, but no end product. The closest they came in the first half was this speculative effort from Junior Kadir, who was back from a one-match ban. And he had keeper Mateos scrambling across his goal. They've improved under Jeroen Rijsdijk, who took charge over the winter break, and almost held final to a draw last time out. They also should have beaten NAC the week before, but conceded a stoppage time equaliser. On a dry and difficult pitch, Ajax had trouble putting moves together and only occasionally broke clear. This seemed to have been sparked by watching Cadil go close. Brian Brobby had no one to cross to, though. The danger was soon averted. At the other end, Ajax's Brazilian keeper was enjoying his second appearance after a man-of-the-match display in their 2-0 home win over Go-Ahead Eagles. These things look great when they do come off. His coach Francesco Farioli might not have been feeling as relaxed as he looked. But his distribution also played a big part in Ajax's only other real chance, when Mika Hodz flicked the ball away from Ricardo Visos. But rather than crossing, he messed up a close-range finish right on the half-time whistle. Brobby, the Eredivisie's Player of the Month for February, wasn't happy. And he now had 15 minutes away from the cameras to tell him just that. Mateus may have adapted quickly to life in the Eredivisie, according to his manager, but he was at fault here, racing from goal unnecessarily. Cornelius Hansen coming very close to making it 1-1, for which the keeper apologised. It would have completed a nice set for the Norwegian winger, who'd already scored here this season against both PSV and Feyenoord. Ajax had got themselves into a winning position on their only other visit here last season, only to then concede a stoppage-time penalty and draw 2-2. Half-time sub Jordi Mocchio added some drive and energy in midfield. When he'd come on, he only turned 17 a couple of days before. But Almere City's players admitted they didn't expect to have so much of the ball against more illustrious opponents. Fullback Hamdi Yakuyobi stole it back and was allowed to progress a long way. He's never scored an Eredivisie goal, but the threat was coming more from the home side than Ajax. With still just the one shot on target, the likelihood of a second goal was slim for the visitors, and chances remained hard to come by. Brobby creating this for Steven Berghuis, who was denied by the retreating Vasilis Sagaditis. They'd won all 6 Eredivisie games this year, and despite their multitude of past achievements, they'd won the first 7 of a calendar year just 3 times, twice in the early 70s, and recently in 2017 under current PSV coach Peter Bosz. He was no doubt supporting their opponents at this point, who threatened again after a mistake from Jorel Hato, the defender rectifying things with a well-timed challenge on Hansen. But it was nervy stuff for the few visiting fans that could cram in behind the goal. Weghorst may not yet be available, but he was at the game and gave a speech to the squad before, which Farioli said contributed to the good start. Jordan Henderson made his return from 3 weeks out injured with around 20 minutes to go. And it took until the 75th minute for Ajax to manage a second shot on target. One of just 5 efforts they had in the whole game, compared to 14 for their opponents, who had scored in their previous 4 games, but never done that in 5 top-flight games in a row. But as the visitors laboured and made mistakes in their build-up, so Almere retained hope and took game with this. Another very similar error from Hato threatened to make the closing stages difficult, and home shouts for handball added to the worry. But with the ball having deflected onto his arm off another part of his body, there was no chance of a penalty. All of which made it a nervy last few minutes as Ajax worked hard to protect their slender lead, particularly when the game entered the phase where the home side had nothing to lose. Klaasen's actions conceded a free kick, and even goalkeeper Nordin Bakker came forward for this. But his opposite number Matthias came out on top again to secure a second straight clean sheet. And a 7th consecutive league win, 4 of them coming away from home. So they extended their lead to 8 points with 10 games to go. Unlike their title rivals, they're still winning even when not playing well. Next, it's Eintracht Frankfurt in the Europa League. Almere City remain bottom and 3 points behind RKC. Owen van der Looy's hopes of winning the Dutch Cup for a second time were dashed in midweek. His Heracles side losing to AZ on penalties in the semi-final, Brian Limbombe missing the crucial kick. What they needed to begin the process of recovery was a fast start against Pek Zwolle, and they got it when a direct clearance led to a penalty. Damian van der Haar fouling Juho Talviti. Referee Martijn Vos also brought out a red card for the challenge. That would have left the visitors in big trouble. However, after checking the replays and calling the referee over to the monitor to have a look himself, the decision was changed. Van der Haar had made a genuine attempt to play the ball, so the card changed from red to yellow. The penalty still stood though. And 4 minutes after it had been awarded, Brian de Kersmaker stepped up to take it. Their regular penalty taker, he'd actually been subbed in the cup, so didn't get the chance to take one. However, less than a minute later, Zwolle were level with a goal that came just 9 seconds after they kicked off again. A long ball from Simon Graves was missed by 2 players, including Kersmaker, and Dylan Venter was onto it in a flash, matching his early goal from when the sides met in September. An 11th in 23 appearances for the former Feyenoord youngster, already by far his best tally in one top-flight season. A period of respite followed before Shem Scherperman wasted a golden opportunity to make it 2-1. It seemed easier to score, but instead, the first Eredivisie goal continued to elude him. And punishment followed from Anselmo McNulty, the defender scoring the first of the season from Davy Vandenberg's free kick, only his 3rd ever. The first that he'd managed away from home for the Ireland under-21 international. The entertainment continued right up to half-time, with Heracles giving as good as they got. De Kersmaker seizing on the loose ball here and taking aim. Keeper Jasper Schendelaar coming out on top. And then just before the break, Thomas Bruns did get the reward, mopping up after a few of his teammates couldn't quite manage to. Talviti chose the unselfish option here at the far post. It didn't reach Mats Rots, but it did fall kindly for the experienced midfielder. He had a brief spell on loan with Pek Zwolle in 2019, but not enough to stop him celebrating a 3rd goal of the season. All square at the break then, and a change of boots was needed early in the second half when Venter caught defender Ivan Mesic. was given, but the referee didn't seem to realise that the challenge had actually damaged the Slovakians' right boot. Cue some frustration, and the Herakles kitman scrambling to find a replacement. That frustration then made way for elation as they scored twice in quick succession either side of the hour to take control. The first was very neatly constructed with some precision passing and good movement. Rots and Podgoriano linked up down the left. Talviti rounded it off. A third goal for the 19-year-old winger, who's a Finland under-21 international already. His season loan from Belgian side Lommel, who one of these City Football Group clubs, is working out well. Five minutes later, a similar move down the same side produced a similar response. Mario Engels, who'd replaced Talviti, crossed for Gisonka to make it 4-2. Just a third in 17 appearances for the striker, who hasn't been as effective this season as last, when he scored 10 times in the same amount of games. Poor marking this time gave him the space he needed. Van der Looy called this their best win of the season, not because they played better than in any other game, but because they delivered after 120 minutes and a crushing disappointment in midweek, and put 4 points between themselves and the bottom three. They could have made things worse for Zwolle too. The Kersmarker hit the post after this set piece. Another lucky escape from the visitors. Their coach, Johnny Janssen, was far from impressed with their energy and performance in the second half in particular, as their winless run stretched to 4 games. They've won just twice in 10 outings, and they have a game against Ajax coming up this weekend. Van der Looy announced afterwards he'd be stepping down when his contract expires at the end of the season. The former Dutch under-21 coach is looking for a new challenge. They'll hope to leave them in the top half. They're 11th at the moment, with a visit to Fortuna Sittard coming next. Sparta Rotterdam and Willem II were separated by just 4 points either side of the relegation zone, with Sparta in the playoff place and the Tilburgers hovering just above. While the home side had lost their last 2 without scoring, Willem II were yet to win at all in 2025, losing 4 and drawing 2, and they fell behind here in straightforward fashion. Keeper Nikolai claiming an assist with this booming clearance, which was fielded by Tobias Lauritsen. He was too strong for Rafael Bahunek, and he found the net for the second home game in a row. Their top scorer in the last 2 seasons, he's been a little quieter this time around. Sparta could do with this being the time that he finds form. Molly Stein went 9 games without a win after returning to the club in November. They then beat Arsed and Groningen before the most recent 2 defeats against Feyenoord and Go Ahead Eagles. There have also been a lot of ins and outs during the winter transfer window, but keeping hold of Lauritsen was good business. He didn't want to lose winger Kamil Nelly or midfielder Arne Verschuren either, but he did gain experience in Karel Eiting and Mitchell van Bergen, as well as youth in the shape of Christian Glinson and Jivai Ezekiel. Van Bergen's pace also set this one up for Shunsuke Mito, which was well kept out by keeper and defenders. Willem II struggled to live with them in the first half. They've shown character and made life difficult for the likes of RZ, Feyenoord and PSV, but they haven't been able to do themselves justice in recent games with Groningen and RKC. Ezekiel, who's on loan from Feyenoord, set up another chance for Mito, who could have given his side breathing space by half-time. The same logic applies to Van Bergen, who hadn't scored in approaching 4 years. The way Sparta hit the ground running at the start of the second half, though, he probably should have done here from Aiting's cross, or at least set up a teammate. He did come closer just before the hour, giving another glimpse of his searing pace as he motored forward. His cross deflected, and nearly giving him what he'd waited so long for. A few moments later, the wait was over. His last goal came for Heerenveen in a defeat to Ajax in early April 2021, 1,428 days before this. Despite falling over, he got the shot away, and the power did the job. His relatively new teammates all seemed aware of how much it would mean to him. There had been nothing from 94 shots in 94 games since his last goal, and very few assists either. This was also the first of 2 in 5 minutes which took the game away from their opponents. Verbergen even provided the assist for the next, in what was turning out to be a standout afternoon for him. A perfectly flighted cross onto the head of Lauritsen, who's one of the tallest players in the league. And from this point on, a visiting comeback never looked likely, despite a triple change for them happening straight away. Instead, it would be Sparta who carried on looking the more likely to score. And Ole nearly claimed himself another assist. A brilliant throw here set Mito away, but his finishing let him down again, having seemingly done the hard bit. Perhaps he just had no energy left after sprinting upfield. In a game of firsts, Clinton pounced for his maiden Sparta goal too, capping another quick break, a trademark of Stein's first spell in charge. Mike Klein set it up for the 21-year-old midfielder who's on loan from Ajax. And he finished it brilliantly. Just the second time Sparta had scored more than 3 goals this season. With 4 winnable games coming up against NAC Breda, Zwolle, Fortuna Sittard and NEC, they could be all but safe by early April if they can continue this kind of form. It's 4 defeats in 5 for Willem II. They did also draw with PSV during that time, but they have Utrecht and Go Ahead Eagles to deal with next. They'll need to rediscover form, and quickly. They're now just a point above Sparta, with 7 separating them from second bottom RKC. A big week then at the top and the bottom of the Eredivisie. Along with Sparta, Heracles were the big winners in the bottom half, while there were useful points for NSA and Groningen. Ajax, Utrecht, Go Ahead Eagles and Heerenveen all had an excellent weekend. No side has ever lost an 8-point lead at this stage of the season. Ajax are not indulging any title talk just yet though. There's a 4-way battle for third behind them, while a host of sides could make the top 8. That's all for now. We're back next week. Until then, from me, Jonathan Beck, it's goodbye.